Our world is awash with immigrants. No matter what name you use, hundreds of thousands of people are on the move. Some are fleeing war. We call them refugees. Some are fleeing from natural disasters. We call them evacuees. And then there are those called exiles who are fleeing from their homeland out of fear or the need for food because of famines. All these immigrants, for various reasons, are traveling to different parts of our planet in order to sustain their life. We are the followers, the disciples of the greatest immigrant who ever lived. We are the followers of Jesus of Nazareth. Oh, I know the gospel says that Jesus only went out of his own country on 2 occasions. A brief overnight visit, it looked like, to what we would call southern Lebanon, or that trip across the Lake of Galilee to the other shore, the land of the Gerasenes, which was not Israel's territory. But Paul tells us that Jesus is the greatest of all immigrants because he is God, and he divested himself of his divinity and came to dwell among us. The Creator became one of his own creatures. When immigrants come to a new country, we expect them to adapt, to take on the ways of the new country, especially to obey the laws of the land, to pledge allegiance to this new country in which they are living. When Jesus came among us, the first thing he said in each of the Gospels is, "The kingdom of God is among you." The kingdom of God is at hand. He came to invite us to emigrate from our worldly way of living to live in the way of the kingdom of his Father. And we have pledged our allegiance to him. We have agreed and are willing to obey the laws of the kingdom. Where do we find those laws? Just as in our own country we have the Constitution, and all the laws of the land through these hundreds of years must conform to that basic law or be declared unconstitutional, so we have the Constitution of the kingdom of God which Jesus gave us, and it's the Sermon on the Mount as given us by St. Matthew in his Gospel. The Sermon on the Mount, which is distilled even further into the 8 Beatitudes. This is the way of life of the kingdom. This is what has been offered to us by Jesus. This is what we have accepted. And Jesus brought the way of living in this kingdom of God down to even a finer point. He said, "I give you a new law, a new commandment. Love each other as I have loved you." That's what today's parable is about in the gospel. Jesus said, this is the way it is in the kingdom of God. And he asks us to model our way of living, our way of loving on the way that is given to us in the gospel. Just as the ruler, the king, who represents God, of course, forgave all the sins, all the debt of his servant, so God has done for us and calls upon us to live in the same way with each other. What is love? It's the unselfish concern for the well-being of another person. That covers everything, revealing itself day by day in the mercy we show them, just as the king in the parable showed mercy to the slave and forgave his debt. The work of the law of the kingdom is giving self in service of all, as I have loved you, Jesus said, modeling us for us. Becoming a citizen in a new country is always a process. We learn the laws of the land, we learn some of the history of the country, and then we pledge our allegiance and become citizens of that land. We become citizens of the kingdom of God with our baptism, but living that citizenship is still a process, and all of us are in the midst of that process. It's lifelong. We have begun, and we must continue if we're going to be truly citizens of the kingdom and spread that kingdom throughout the world as we know it. But we need a leader. We need a model. And the model is Christ himself, who will lead us eventually into full citizenship in the kingdom of God.